Is this working? Looks like it. Okay, we're gonna try this again. So very early days on this streaming. I've never done streaming before, but it's kind of like, okay, well, what have people been talking about this week, and can I go into a bit more detail and wax lyrical about that? So the things that have really got traction this week have all been around outsourcing. So founders always have to outsource their MVP, but my position is that founders always struggle when doing this because outsourced agencies are fundamentally not set up to support founders. There's all sorts of reasons for this. Key one is the fact that founders operate in a kind of experimentation mode as you're trying to find product market fit. You don't necessarily know what it is you're trying to build yet, but an agency relies on you knowing what it is that you want to build up front. So one of the more controversial shorts I put out this week based on the number of traffic is this idea that most organizations will end up offshoring their outsourcing, which means that they're based in the UK, and most of the audience I talk to is in the UK. So they're based in the UK and they will send that work to an overseas organization in order to develop it. And you can normally choose between one which is nearshore, which normally means Eastern Europe, or one which is offshore, which normally means a more physically distant country such as India, Pakistan, Thailand, all those countries which are in Asia and more distant. The danger with outsourcing is that it is very difficult for a non-technical person to do it, or a non-technical team to do it. Outsourcing is used to augment existing technical teams, which means you take a core team which will have some technical leadership in it, normally a CTO or a CIO, and they will outsource the project, but they know how to manage an IT project. A founder who's coming at this cold, who doesn't know how to build technology yet, will often struggle with outsourcing just because they're not set up to support it. One of the key reasons for this is that one of the things that really trips people up is there's a fundamental difference between outsourcing software within the UK and outsourcing software overseas, which is that UK organisations will take a consultative approach. So if you go and find an organisation in Peterborough or Bristol or Cardiff, they will work with you and on a consultative basis to work out what it is that you're trying to build, and then they will offer you a price and you will go away and build it. Offshore organisations, whether they're based in kind of Eastern Europe or over in Asia, exist as a staffing measure because they're looking to augment existing teams. So they assume that the consultancy bit isn't required. And that's a big part of where you get this difference in price from, right? So when you're outsourcing to the UK, you'll be spending about £80 an hour to do the outsourcing, but when you offshore to Eastern Europe, e.g. Poland, you'll be paying £50 an hour. When you outsource to Asia, I say you'll be paying about £20 an hour just to keep just to illustrate something that doesn't seem too surprising, but realistically you can get outsourcing in India, etc., for about £10 an hour. So the difference is enormous. Part of the reason why there's that enormous difference is because when you outsource to the UK, you are paying for consultancy. So all of the pricing dynamics in outsourcing comes down to staff costs, because realistically you're taking, for example, 3 people who still have similar skills and experience, but they will have more earning power and will cost the outsourcing agency more money, depending on whether they're based in the UK or based in Poland or based in India. And that's where a lot of these pricing comes from. But there is this real difference in that if you're in the UK, if you engage an organisation in the UK, you're doing that consultancy. Now, the consultancy side is really important, because if you don't know what you're building yet because you are trying to find product market fit, somebody who's done that process before or is a technical specialist who's then saying to you, do you know, okay, well, we've seen this done before and this isn't such a great idea, or we've seen another company do this, it works really well, have you thought about? That is what you get for this extra, what practically is about 35% spend in the UK. And you may find that really valuable, and it is important when finding product market fit. The second point about all this is that the reason why nearshoring to Eastern Europe exists at all is because even if you did know what you were doing, for various reasons, it is quite difficult to get good results out of an offshore partner that is physically and culturally very diverse from where you start. So if you're in the UK and trying to offshore to Thailand, for example, you will find it harder to do that as a non-technology founder than if you offshore to someone in Poland or Croatia or whatever. That is why nearshore organisations exist. It's to create a middle ground in terms of cost and complexity between those two. So one of the things that I was doing a short on this week, which by the numbers looks reasonably controversial, is this idea that as a non-technology founder, you should not really be offshoring to Asia. You should be offshoring or nearshoring within Eastern Europe. So that would be, so my advice is, if you have to outsource, then great, you do have to outsource. If you feel like the budget constraints are such that you can't lodge that within a UK organisation, then you should lodge it within an Eastern Europe organisation, not one that's over in Asia. There also another problem that I did a short on a really long time ago, which is that if you are based in the UK and you run into a problem with your UK based agency, you can take them to court. If you think you have a litigatable claim, you can do that. You can go and file your claim and end up trying to go through that litigation process, and you may get some or all of your money back, or you might get other remedies, or you might manage to pinch the vendor in a position that they're going to lean in and sort of help you resolve that. If you are a startup business, you have zero chance of being able to take a company in Croatia to court, or a company in Thailand to court, or Pakistan. You are just going to be losing your money. And this is something that I may redo another short on this, because people tend not to talk about this at all. You effectively have no legal remedy if you're engaging someone overseas. Might be slightly different. Well, we're not in the EU anymore. Might be slightly different if you choose an Eastern European country that is in the EU, I presume. Showing my ignorance here. But that is a really great stopgap. If you select your agency in the UK and they have the right insurance, you do have that chance of remedy. And that is something that you completely lose if you take that work overseas. So let's see what else was controversial over the past month. One that got quite a bit of traffic was this idea that outsourced agencies are really bad at marketing. Now, this tends to be true. This tends to be true if you're talking generally about IT companies, and they are very, very bad at marketing. Part of the reason why they are bad at marketing is because they don't have that ability to they don't know that they're supposed to differentiate. So you'll find that an IT company will go out to the market and say, we can do all things for all people, but of course all marketing relies on you being able to niche down. There is this phrase in marketing, which is the riches are in the niches. It's an American phrase, so you have to say niches like you're not, that you've got an American accent. But yeah, it's you, and this is a key thing if you're looking at what you do within your business. So there's this marketing phrase that I really like, which is that you come at it from the perspective that you help blank do blank so that they can blank without blank. So for my businesses, I help non-technology founders build technology businesses so that they can realize their professional ambitions. They can realize their professional ambitions of building that business without it blowing up in their face. As a risk-based profession and an IT consultant for many years, obviously all my withouts are always to stop it blowing up in your face. But if you do that phrase, that gives you kind of like a one-line marketing strategy that you can then take forward in your marketing, and that is really cool, being able to do that. And then as you start to scale the business, what you want to do is go and find someone who's a really strong marketing professional to help you kind of bring that to life. That one I can't really riff on. Yeah. So last month I had this short that is the only short that I've got that's gone viral, which is this idea about should a CTO be able to code. And there's an awful lot of people that kind of suggest that CTO shouldn't be able to, that it's not necessary that it's a purely business role. I think this is a really bad take, because it is realistically the job of the CTO. The difference between a CTO and a CIO is a CTO is chiefly responsible for delivering the digital products that the business wants to put in place in order to have a business, in order to kind of deliver value to its customers, right? So the CTO is a very outward-looking role, and it is a software engineering-based role. The CTO's job is to build software. CIOs aren't like that at all. So we kind of got a number of roles now. We got CTO and CIO were the first two that sort of started, which are and the CIO you can kind of think of as what we used to call a technical director, but now we have like CDO for Chief Data Officer, CISO for Chief Information Security Officer. You don't really get a CCSO as a Chief Cybersecurity Officer, but yeah. So the point of a CIO is that is an inward-looking role, so it's looking at efficiency and systems and data in order to help the organisation deliver efficiency, which as you create businesses which are more mature, then you need to start looking at how you can make them more efficient. The CIO role is central to that. Anyway, as the CTO's job is exclusively around building digital products, my view is that the person who is doing that has to be able to physically do that work. For example, if I were hiring a CMO, I would have expected them to have been a marketing director at some point, or very senior and very capable of doing marketing. If I hired a CFO, I want them to be a chartered accountant. If I hire a COO, I expect them to know how to run an operations or how to run and improve operations. So for me, it's quite curious that that people can argue that a CTO shouldn't be able to code. There is a distinction as to whether a CTO should code, but I think that distinction comes into place in older, more established businesses as well. A CTO in a startup probably would end up putting their feet under the desk and sitting in front of a keyboard in Visual Studio and writing some code. If you've got 100 developers in your organization, are they doing operational delivery? No. There is a really important thing that CTO can do, which is when you are trying to, realistically, whatever you're building in terms of that software, you have to have a design in your head and other people have to run around delivering that design, right? So the organization will say, we need some software that does X. In the context of like technology businesses, that is, we need a product that does X, or we need product features in our existing project to do A, B, and C. There has to be somebody who is architecturally involved and knows what that needs to look like, and they will say, okay, well, this is the design that I have in my head. They may take input from other people. They will take input from other people in the organisation, but someone has to be chiefly responsible for that architecture, which is why back in the day we used to get job roles like chief software architect, like Bill Gates used to be chief software architect at Microsoft before he left. It's very easy when you are a technician to talk to other technicians using that common language of code, right? So if I need to tell a developer how to do something, it's going to be much easier for me to express that as code and say that this is the general shape of what you want to do, what this design needs to operate like, take that as a core, and then build around it. If you find something horrendously wrong with that core that I've delivered to you and it doesn't fit, then just kick it around a bit more. But realistically, rather than the organization get in a state where it kind of goes, well, the technology leadership needs to talk to the technology engineers in plain English, and that kind of doesn't make sense. That only helps the organization understand what it is the technology team are talking about. And if you have that sort of problem where the organization isn't trusting those intra-member communications within the organization, you've got a different problem. Let's see if I've got any chats. No. Oh wow, that just went out. Okay. Gosh. All right, so that is live. That's fun. Oh wow, I'm getting some chats. This is very exciting. So this is from an anonymous user. I know a founder is a developer in Brazil who delivered compiled binaries but no code, then ghosted them. Wow. Okay, that's horrendous. that is a good example of the sort of thing that can happen to non-technology founders when they outsource, because it's quite difficult to find an outsourced organization where the output is actually really bad, where they are incompetent. Normally it's more of a business failing on the customer side or the founder's side, that they're not, and in fairness, not in a position to be able to describe what it is that they want. But to actually just take your money, dump a whole load of code at you, and then ghost them, that is horrible. So yeah, once worked for a company with CTO as a former trader and salesman. The software was terrible, demanded the impossible, as he had no clue. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, look, you do need good leadership. Everybody wants to work in a team where people are competent and trusted, and it's, you need that leadership to know what they're doing. Cool. So spec, yeah, Friendly Mexico says they don't do actual proper specs. So rather than reading this, just sort of thinking. So specifications is something I want to do a lot more content about, because I think we're kind of getting to the point in that journey where this is something that non-technology, nobody can write good specs, right? As a general rule, no one can write a good specification, but it is not possible to build software without a good specification. So that kind of gap has to be bridged somewhere, and there's kind of lots of things that we do in the industry to fudge around the fact that we can't get the users to synthesize good specifications. I think I need to do a lot more content on that specifically. Cool. So that is interesting. One other comment is on your post. Oh, okay. So, and actually in the thing I can see, I can see in LinkedIn who's actually commented it. Yeah, that developer in Brazil. I think I might steal that story and use that myself. That's good. So another one that got a lot of traffic was developers will spend the company's money like it's not theirs. That, again, a little bit tongue in cheek, but really where this comes down to is that all companies don't tend to empower technical teams to understand the importance of the business decisions which are going along with what they do. So way back in the day when I used to run a software company, one of the things that I found the absolute most effective thing, and I would recommend that everybody did, was that I made sure that the developers who were in that organization knew what the cost and profit basis of all their work was. Because it's kind of, you end up with the organization going, the bottom and top line is really important and we need to really manage the money that's flowing through this organization, but then they don't involve the rest of the organization in that. And I'm not, culturally, does this create a problem of making one which is all about the money? I don't think so. I think it's part of it. Anyway, this post was about the idea that developers will often they will not by default take a considered view about the cost impact of what they're building and what they're suggesting. So you will have a developer who will go, look, we just need to put this on Azure, and that's cool. There may be some really good technical reasons why that is absolutely the place to go, but with that decision comes a cost. There is a whole cost profile related with that decision, and that is not really queried. And even if it is queried, it can be seen quite adversarial. So you can end up in the leadership going, we're spending an absolute ton of money on AWS or Azure. Why? And actually, that could have been discussed way earlier on. And then to see exactly whether that is a good cost basis. There's other things which can actually trip up more non-technical teams, where they can end up in a position where they will make decisions to, like, it's kind of a rookie mistake, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like you can end up saying, we want absolutely to have this, we need this service integrated into our application, and then you are bound, you're stuck. There's, vendor lock-in is a thing, and vendors like to get paid. So being locked into a vendor that sits there one day and goes, oh, we've sold out now, or we don't like the writing on the wall in terms of how the economy's going, we're gonna up our prices by 150%, that happens. So you do have to consider the cost basis of what you are building, and realistically you need to minimize that cost basis. If you're a brand new business, you do want to be spending as little as you possibly can. Like, for example, I'm doing this lives. This live is important to what I do, and I'm using a service, but it only lets me go to 2 platforms at once. So I can go to LinkedIn and I can go to YouTube at the same time. I could go and spend X amount a month so I can send that out and start building it on some other platforms, but what's the point? I'm a startup as much as everybody else. Just seeing if we're getting any other comments in. Oh, we have. Wally's giving some comments. I find specifications don't work. To be honest, Wally, I probably do want to talk with you more about some war stories about specifications. There has to be some way to describe this. So like so I've got this book coming out at the end of the year, which is about how helping non-technology my thing is always about non-technology teams, right? So, but this book is for more established businesses. So it's for mid-market businesses who are looking to implement IT systems. And it's kind of around the sort of stuff that I've learned doing expert witness work is actually, how can these projects go horrendously wrong? How can you end up, battling over multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds in this stuff? And it's kind of, the book was designed to help non-technical teams see some of those out. And a good chunk of the book is about specifications. In fact, William says crying software is much like going to court. Many twists and turns the old prepare for the beginning. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's part of the thing that really catches out founders, as with early stage businesses, as they are. An early stage business has absolutely no idea where its product market fit really is, right? So, and that's the difference between a startup and an established business. And most startups will fail because they ultimately can't find product market fit. Even if you look at the other reasons why startups fail, you don't, all of those relate to product market fit. So you'll have something like, run out of money. And it'd be like, well, yeah, but you ran out of money before you found product market fit. If you'd have found product market fit, you would have found the money. And that really is everything. So when you are a startup business, you do not know where product market fit is. You've got an idea, and normally, so a lot of the founders that I work with are those who've worked in industry and they know what the problems in the industry are, and they've got that really decent idea of I want to do a business which does X, Y, and Z, but they don't really know. So you could be sitting there working for UPS and FedEx and go, I'm going to start up a drone delivery business, and off you go, and it's kind of like, that didn't work at all. You couldn't find product market fit in that. Established businesses do, which is why, but agencies will only do a good job with businesses that have got that that have found that product market fit. I do recognise your background, Go. That's music sound insulation. It is. So yeah, in my studio, and I've got to put some stuff on the loft, on the roof. But yeah, that was good. And I've got my Raspberry Pi powered lights as well. That's very good. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this studio is a garden room, and it's all wooden. I don't know why I'm talking about this. It's all wooden walls, so it echoes like crazy. So the whole thing is just tiled. And yeah, but the back bit looks good. The rest of it looks reasonably comedic. What are we? Let's have a look at what else. Well, if there are people watching, do feel free to comment along. Otherwise, I will go and find another short that inspired me to do. Yeah, this one didn't move, and I might do this one again because it got really low traffic. But this is this idea that everything that you do within your business should pile value into the intellectual property of your business, right? Fundamentally, you are trying to sell this thing. So there's an argument that if you go away from kind of the theatrics about startup life and you're sort of saying, I just want a nice lifestyle business, I want to make £2 million, £4 million a year, I want to book £500,000, £1 million in profit, which works really well, rather than going, I want a business that I could sell for 20, 40 million, 50 million pounds. The intellectual property is still really, really important. Fundamentally, someone is going to buy what you do. And the lean startup movement, I think, was the sort of the start of this. If you career that's disappointingly long enough that you can kind of look back beyond the lean startup movement, which started about 2010, 2012, everything at that point was about multiples of the value of intellectual property. Right, and that was the only thing that was really important. What can you put in this business by way of an investment that is protectable IP that you can sell. Ironically, even back then, nobody knew what IP stood for, and now everybody knows what IP stands for, as in intellectual property, not internet protocol. But every decision that you make every day within your software, within your technology business, should be about actually how do you improve the intellectual property of that. Part of that is to kind of avoid issues with spend. So again, coming back to spend, possibly for the kind of businesses that I work with, this doesn't happen so much. But if you're kind of going, I want to be a big AI startup and I need to bring in £5 million of funding because I need to spend £3 million training a model. All you're doing with that money is you're spending that £3 million not on intellectual property, you're spending it on electricity to drive production of this thing, right? So you're not sitting there kind of going, I'm going to build this piece of, I'm going to build this piece of equipment in my factory, and it's going to be a unique piece of equipment. It happened, it's amazing. It drops little bits of molten tin and shines X-rays at it, and then I can use that X-ray light to manufacture silicon chips, right? No, that's intellectual property. If you're spending £3 million on training an AI model, you're effectively just burning money to do that. So, but I think smaller businesses don't have this problem, because even smaller businesses, although most of the pitches that I see these days have got AI in it somewhere, the AI use is quite componentized. It's quite small. But people don't tend to think enough about what can I do today to increase the value of the intellectual property of my business, because realistically I have to sell this thing. I want to, and for a lot of people this means retiring. Yeah. So if a really common pathway for founders is to work in industry, start in industry when you're out of university, not being very university centric, just kind of going, look, imagine you're in your early 20s, 22, you do 23 years in industry, end up at 45, you go, I'm going to start a business now. You do that from 45 to 65. By the time you get to 65, you probably want to sell that and go. Lots of problems in that anyway, because even as now, when a lot of boomers are trying to sell their businesses, they're finding it really difficult to do that. So, but there's people talk about exit planning around without necessarily thinking about how old you will be when you do that. So it's really common to start a business at 45, for a technology startup at 45. It's equally really common for it to take 10 years for it to fly. It's then equally common to take 10 years for you going into a nice comfy office all day and doing something you've got really comfortable with, and then go, I'm now going to go and live on a cruise ship. Funny enough, my mum was telling me the story earlier, which is that she saw it in the news, that there's these people now that will, rather than going into a retirement home, will spend all their money on continuous cruise ships because it's cheaper. I mean, I guess there's no nursing capability, but anyway, sorry, that was just an aside. And Wally, there is nothing wrong with small-scale lifestyle businesses. Like, that's what I would. I'm not going to try and create a business I can sell for £30 million now. I want to create a business which I can pile money into my pension and get out the other side. Thanks very much. I'd love a business like that. Yeah, I think a lot of people would. What was I saying? So yeah, really try and think much harder about what you want to do about intellectual property, because like I say, people don't seem to bother to. People don't think about it as much as they should do. So I'm getting distracted clicking around. Need to get used to this. It's just Wally and Thomas, which is great. Hi guys. I didn't mean to sound disappointed, because I'm not. It's great. It's great. I thought I'd have nobody, so this is fantastic. What else could we do? I'm only going to do about 10 more minutes. This was one that did some traffic, and to be honest, I wrote it so it would, which was, don't let anyone use MongoDB or NoSQL databases in your product. Now, I don't like MongoDB. I don't like NoSQL databases. There has not been a day of my professional career where I did not use SQL Server. No, that's not true, because when I started, the company that I worked with, SQL 6.5 still wasn't out yet, and they were using Watson SQL. Whatcom SQL? It was a Canadian business. Was it Whatcom? Must have been Whatcom. I can't remember who they got bought and went into, and I'm not going to get myself distracted on Wikipedia whilst on a live stream. But anyway, it was a relational SQL database. One of the things that always blows my mind is like how many rows in a database do you create or change in a day? Like every time I've had to phone the company that's trying to book in my windscreen repair, and it's kind of just making that phone call creates a few rows in their CRM database somewhere. When you go to Tesco's and you're scanning stuff, that's creating rows in a SQL database. All of these things that we do, like SQL databases, relational databases, are so core to what we do. What am I talking about? I'm going on about MongoDB. Right, so the problem with MongoDB is that it is the only bad architectural decision that a founder can make. So as a founder, you don't really want to be making technical decisions because you don't know what you're doing. Not in a bad way. It's kind of, that's not your specialism, right? Your specialism is doing the business development to find your product market fit. You have to find a technical partner or a technical co-founder who will do that for you. Generally speaking, in 2023, in our modern era, you can't make bad technical decisions. It's all of this stuff is now all of this stuff is now very established. Like we kind of know how to do everything, so it doesn't really matter if you choose React Native or I want to say Angular. Why do I want to say Angular? Yeah, React or Angular. It doesn't matter if you choose. You need to build your MVP. It's really hard, and it's a lot of money. So when you find that £7,500,000 and you pile it onto the outsource agency, they you need what they come up with to be a foundation that you can build the rest of the business on. The only bad architectural decision you can make, actually, is this, I need to see where this is hung. The only bad architectural decision you can make is around no, I do still have that. Why is that glitching out? Strange. Somebody needs to reboot Matt. Ugh. Why has that dropped out? Oh, it hasn't. It's back. Great. Now I've got to make a decision as to whether I go back and edit this out. I don't know. Is that working? Can't send messages to some channels. Oh, okay. Hello. Sorry. Oh, God, I've completely lost my train of thought. Right. The foundation that you end up building as a non-technology founder commissioning software to go to an offshore agency, if they give you something back that relates on Mongo, you will have to unwind that problem at some point. It is a poor architectural decision for a startup. It's a poor architectural decision for a version 1 MVP. And a lot of the criticism I was getting about that post was, NoSQL's great and document databases are great. I mean, they're not. They suck, right? And I'm happy to have that fight. But particularly for the audience that I talk to, saying to them, this is something you can remember and make sure you don't do, is a really quick and easy thing. And a lot of the way that I write my content is to just keep dropping little ideas in so that founders can learn where the obstacles, where the real things that they can come unstuck are. Cool. Right, I'm probably only going to do about another 5 minutes of this because it's hilariously tiring. Yes, SQL 6.5. Haha, that takes me back. I remember, I'm sure it was SQL 6.5, but the install screen used to have it was in the queue, in the middle of the queue when it was on the screen, it would like have a little animation where it was putting sand in it and it would kind of fill up the queue. I might see if I can find that later and post it, but that was completely hilarious. I remember begging the company I was working for at the time just to get me a copy of SQL 6.5 because I really wanted to use it. I didn't like that. Oh, it's Whatcom SQL. That was it. And I can't remember who they got bought by. I went into because oh wow, I got bought by SAP. Amazing. Wow. Good job, SAP. Have a plan to wean your developers. Which other one? Yeah, which ones didn't do good business? That's not a bad way to look at this. are very politically trying to do one which was maybe the idea you have isn't as good as you think it is. You can save an awful lot of money just by not building something that's never going to work. Technology partner doesn't know you're supposed to make you feel secure. Yeah, you probably don't need to pay for advice. No, I'm not sure I can do that one. Yeah, this one did really badly, and I think it was a hook that I put on it. So I was watching. So I really like those deep dive videos where you go on YouTube and someone will spend an hour analysing a 20-minute TV show. Right, that for me is bliss. And one of the ones we were talking about, which was like the quality of the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, although Ahsoka is amazing and Thrawn is fantastic. The quality of those shows. When they do the lightsaber battles, you can go, like, amateurs are usually better. So even though they've got the actors and they've got that choreography and they've got that time and the money to do, you can, as an amateur, do a better job than the professionals. And what I was trying to say was, if you feel like you've got your imposter syndrome is sufficient that you don't feel that you can go and build the business that you want to because you think that someone's going to come and squash it. It's not true. You can come up with something disruptive. You will in your career. And again, coming back to this idea that the founders that I resonate with most are ones that are kind of have had a career and are doing something else. You can find something. You can find something that no one else has done, and you can do it in a way that is disruptive in a good way. We all want to do something which is a little bit different. I think the last comment, and then I'm gonna. But yeah, we use a third party and found we could use SQL Server and run things much faster using binary patterns. Took the queries from 10 minutes for 10,000 a month. So I could actually do 3 seconds in SQL Server. Hey, that's something I haven't done a post about because actually it doesn't line up with my market. But someone said to a friend of mine, I have got some. He said to me something that really shook me to the core, which is that Microsoft now don't build technology anymore. Like, the days when Microsoft would build C# is done. The time when Microsoft will build SQL Server is done, or when Windows is done. They are now only interested in taking open source products that other people have built and then putting a service wrap around the outside. And that was really surprising because for me growing up, Microsoft was always the people who would be over there in Redmond and they would be sitting down in those rooms and they would be building a product. And kind of like, my career started properly when .NET came out and I was getting to go over and meet with the program managers over in Redmond and see what that software was like and see what they were doing and help, hopefully in some sort of way kind of shape how that stuff was done. And it hadn't occurred to me that they just don't do that anymore. Like they are not going to produce, they'll incrementally improve the applications they've got. Office is always going to get better, or they'll find, they'll come up with different applications, but they won't do that baseline. We are foundational. We are going to build this piece of technology that competes. In a way, it feels a bit like IBM, which is a bit of a worry, really, because it's IBM has not done so well over the past 20 years. I should really co-host this with Wally. He's got some good war stories. Fantastic. All right. Well, I think I'm going to leave that there, and then hopefully I'm going to find that YouTube did record this and I can put it up. And hopefully it's not too much of a mess. But you know what they say: the first one's never any good, but the 100th one is better. That's another non-technical thing that someone said to me the other day. That kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of, this was a person who was saying that anything that they did, they would do 100 times, right? They would make, if they wanted to do some cold telephoning and they didn't know if it was going to work, they would just do 100 and then assess it, or they would do 100 videos or then assess it, or they would go to the gym 100 times and then assess it, or they would try, their coffee without sugar in it 100 times. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Consistency, I think, is hugely overrated. And a lesson that I kind of wish I'd learned earlier. So let's just go back to the chat. I'll pick up that Microsoft thing. I mean, they've moved to open source. They're still building products. However, monthly recurring revenue seems to be king now. Phase will end and they'll move back to selling software. I Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I think that's true, but it kind of like, it surprised me because I've always watched Microsoft, and it's just like that had not occurred to me at all. But brilliant. Well, thanks very much for joining, and then hopefully I'll remember to do the next one at 7 p.m. next Thursday. I need to decide if I'm going to do a couple of shorts today or not. Thanks very much. We'll catch you next.